Hey, it's Kelly from Motocross Hideout, and I just want to show you some quick tips on learning how to use your front brake. So this is some beginner tips, and when I'm teaching a new rider how to ride a dirt bike, I always start with using the front brake. I don't worry about the rear brake at first because the front brake is more powerful. It's about 70 and 80% of your braking power. Some people would disagree with me and say to use the rear brake when you're first starting out because it's easy to crash or slide out with the front brake, but I disagree because as long as you're not reckless, it's not that hard to control the front brake. And in fact, I feel like there's less feel for the rear brake, so that if you're especially if you're wearing dirt bike boots, if you slam on the rear brake, it's hard to tell how much feel there is, how much you're pressing down on it, and that can easily lock up the rear wheel, and that will cause you to slide out or stall the engine, and you won't even know it because you just don't have the muscle memory for it. So when using the front brake, when you're coming to a stop, the first thing is you don't want to immediately use full force on it. That's when you get into trouble, and when the front tire slides out, it locks up and then you go down, especially if you're on a slippery surface. So the first thing, I always use 1, 2 at the most when I'm tired fingers on the front brake. So I use 1. You don't want to use 4 because then you have less control on the handlebar when you're stopping. Then you just have your thumb here. So 1 finger, and the initial braking point, so when you start to slow down, when the bike, the momentum, the force of the bike goes forward, it's going to compress the forks and it's going to load the bottom of the tire that's contacting the ground and you're not going to be able to put as much braking power into it that first instant when you start slowing down, because so you got the tire, it's touching the ground, and when it's compressed more, there's going to be more rubber touching the ground, allowing you to use that extra braking power. But you just got that little tip, the center line, the center of the tire that's touching at first. So basically, when you pull on the brake, it's gonna compress the tire, and then more rubber will be touching the ground, allowing you to put more braking power into it. Because at first, but simply, the more rubber you have contacting the ground, the faster you'll be able to slow down or accelerate when you're with your rear wheel. So it's that first braking point where you want to ease into it, and then once you can feel the forks compress, the momentum of the bike go forward because you're slowing down, then you can progressively pull in the brake lever more. Let me show you. Once I get it in neutral. There we go. All right. I'm gonna get up to just a moderate speed in 3rd gear. So I'm gonna ease into the brake, and that was just easing in. So now I didn't have any problems stopping or sliding out. So now I'm gonna try it again, just full lockup. What it's gonna do, if it gets traction, then it's probably gonna do a stop in endo. The rear wheel's gonna come off the ground, and while that's cool, it's kind of scary for a new rider. If it was a slippery surface, you'd be much more likely for the tire to lock up and then slide out. So I'm gonna accelerate and then do a hard stop. Oh, yep. So that's what happened. The tire slid because I didn't get traction because the ground is still thawing out. So that was with me full force right away. So that's why you only want to use 1 finger to start out. That way you won't use all of your force. yeah, I just made a nice rut in our lawn. Nice. I wasn't expecting that, I guess. So I'm gonna accelerate and then ease in. I can feel the forks compress, and then once I feel it compress, then I can clamp down more. And I stalled it because I can't multitask. I can't talk and do all these things at once. I'm not like that. So those are my simple tips for learning to use the front brake. And once you get the feel for the front brake, you just practice on it's that first initial point, and it's a smooth, it's kind of like rolling on the throttle. So instead of brrr, you want to brrr. So instead of accelerating smooth, you want to decelerate smooth. Brrr. And the way to get better at that is once you get to that braking point, then learning how quickly you can clamp on the brakes to slow down. So those are my simple tips. This is Kelly from Motocross Hideout. If you want to learn more, to become a better rider, to be more safer and confident in your riding skills, go to motocrosshideout.com. Learn more, ride more. Oh, I'm real rusty. That's my excuse. It's my first ride of the year. And I'm in second gear.